Hello there, guys. Just having a little look at dollar at the moment. Going to check out some of the data that's coming up. Got manufacturing PMIs coming up in 43 minutes and services PMI, as well as new home sales. So looking to see if there's any kind of further growth, especially when it comes to manufacturing PMI. If I just flick over to Forex Factory and we just open this up, we can see the trend of the PMIs since sort of December 2023 for flash manufacturing PMI has been on that sort of steady sort of growth plan here. So if we do see sort of further growth here, that could be fairly positive. Anything above 50 is usually seen as positive anyway. Usually seen as sort of industry expansion. Same for flash services PMI here. We are fairly above that 50 level and have been for an extended period of time since sort of January 2023. Actually, we've been fairly bullish there. So good afternoon, Vincent. Hope you're doing well, mate. Good afternoon, CG. Hope you're doing good. Yeah, as always, guys, let me know your thoughts on the markets today. Let me know what you're checking out. We've got that big data coming up, so that's going to be something to kind of be aware of. We've got really important data coming up this week as well. We've got some Australian CPI quarter on quarter and year on year coming up, and trimmed CPI quarter on quarter as well. And we've got the GDP data. But really speaking, what I'm really kind of focusing on is more towards the end of the week on Friday. We've got some really big data on Friday. We've got the Bank of Japan policy rate and monetary policy statement. We've obviously seen other sort of officials kind of talking about intervention again for the yen. So there's potential intervention coming. So it'd be interesting to see if there's any kind of changes in the BOJ's policy. And really, core PC price index, definitely one to look for this week as well. Now, core PCE is the Federal Reserve's primary inflationary measure, and they will be looking for a decrease here if they are going to want to start sort of cutting those interest rates. A miss here could be quite big for the US dollar towards the end of the week. So we might just be seeing a bit of positioning for now. Might see a little bit of dollar weaker on the session, the past couple of sessions. So we'll see if that remains the same. Any ideas on GU? Yeah, pound US dollar. Let's go up to pound US dollar. And we'll have a little look at what's going on in the market here. Now, obviously, market is in that sort of downward trend. If we go take a look at sort of last week's close, we had quite a strong bearish close last week. So I expected a little bit more downside to come this week. However, there has been a weaker dollar, and that's kind of supporting pound prices here. We also had pretty good pound data today. So you can see, although the manufacturing PMI was below 50, which wasn't expected, the flash services PMI was up to 54.9, and the UK is a service-based sort of market. You know, the UK is very predominantly service-based. So flash services PMI being up there was pretty good for the UK, and the pound has obviously benefited off the back of that data. You can see on this 15-minute chart, price being very bullish here at the moment. Now, would it be long-term bullish cable? No. If we look at the bigger picture here, we are, on the way to the downside. I quite like the idea of price still coming down further towards 122.40. But we have to understand what kind of phase we're also in the market. If I look at this daily chart here, I can see that price, although we were in the primary phase still yesterday, we did get quite a large wick to the downside with price closing above sort of the halfway point of that candle. That to me shows that maybe there is a little bit of lack of selling pressure, and there might be a little bit more buying pressure coming into the market. I quite like looking for this kind of area up here. Okay, so anywhere between sort of 125 down to sort of 124.10 is where I'm kind of really eyeing up, which is this basically this consolidation here that you can see on the H4 time frame. I like the idea of price coming up a little bit higher. Now, I was monitoring this 4-hour high in here because I predominantly like to trade from highs and lows. So when I was looking at this, I was looking at kind of where are those key highs and lows at the moment. And when I mark them out, I've got one at 22, or one spot 23.87, sort of the area that we're in now. One spot 24.55, just above, which were the highs that formed on the 19th of April. And these lows down here on the 22nd of April would be a good place to target that area. So I'm watching the market at the minute because it could do one or two things at this point. We could either see a continuation up into a level of resistance, and then obviously that sort of turnaround here, or we could see price potentially start to turn around now. You can see we're also kind of butting heads with that 124 handle, the whole number. So I like to look at this in a way of, does the market continue to make higher highs, higher lows on this 15-minute day trading time frame, or does it begin to start making lower highs and lower lows? And that's what I'll be looking for. So if the market tries to push 124 again and fails, maybe we create a new low, then to me, maybe the conditions of the market are starting to change at that point, and then we can start looking at potentially some downside movement back into 123.10, potentially 123 handles. You can see you've got the 50 moving average up towards 124.40, 124.50 as well, which is something I quite like the look of, which is just a little bit up there. I can get rid of this now because that was an old level. So yeah, a couple of levels I think to look out for. I mean, price is above the 50 MA here. I don't really want to short now, especially with data coming up. You know, I don't really want to get involved in that right now. I want to see if price can consolidate here. You know, maybe the news will sort of drive price one way or the other. Maybe we'll see a break towards that H4 level of resistance or a breach of this sort of 124 area. That's what I'm kind of eyeing up there on pound US dollar at the moment. Hopefully that makes sense. Vincent's in short on Aussie US dollar. So let's go take a look at that as well. So let me just bring that up. In short Aussie US dollar from 64.472, we stop at 64.66. Here's at 1 foot home to see what happens. Yeah, let's have a quick flick at that's Euro today. Obviously, Euro's had a bit of a choppy day considering the data out of Europe. So yeah, looking at Aussie US dollar, I quite liked Aussie as well. I must admit, I do like the idea of being Aussie US dollar short at the moment. It's whether the timing's right, okay? Because we've had obviously a big sort of downward move recently, and price is just kind of fighting with these kind of previous swing highs here around about that 64.50 handle. It's whether the timing's right at this point. You know, you've got 0 spot 65. Which is a really strong level of resistance moving up. But I do sort of favour a little bit of downside here on Aussie US dollar, especially down towards this 62.75 handle. So again, just kind of watching and eyeing up these kind of H4 levels. I can see the H4 level at the moment reacting to the 50 MA. We kind of tested this previous swing high as well, around about 64.50. And we did start to get some change. I actually was very tempted to be short Aussie US dollar. I actually got short yesterday and took myself out for a 10 pip loss because we were breaking below the 50 MA here. And I took myself out of this move for a very, very small loss. Because I was anticipating some downside, especially after this kind of wick here on the 4-hour time frame, but it didn't pan out. Got out early and was good to do so because the conditions changed on me and price went to the upside. So looking at the 15-minute here, I'm kind of eyeing at what's the best kind of plan of attack here. I'm going to put your trade details in I don't know whether it was from today, Vincent, but I'm just going to kind of eye that up. So entry price was 64.47 and 2. And then you've TP, we don't know, but stop level was 64.66.1. Click OK. Yeah, so it's a little bit offside at the moment. A little bit offside. Market, I know you're probably looking to target down somewhere in this area. So a little bit offside. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a bad entry. I was looking at this entry myself. I was actually looking at this candlestick here, this kind of bearish close, which closed below these lows. And I was kind of looking at that one myself because we had a strong 4-hour close at that point. And I was looking to see, will price kind of continue that momentum to the downside? But I didn't take it in the end. I was looking to actually get short more like here, and price didn't fill my order, and prices just continued to push to the upside. So I am interested to see what will happen as well. I think for me now, I can see that we're kind of consolidating in this area. So I personally am going to start looking to see if we kind of break out of that range, see if it can kind of produce something for us in that vein of light. Do I think that's a good position? I do, in terms of like from technicalities, from what I can see and how I personally trade, this would be textbook for me in terms of prices come up into a 4-hour area of resistance. I can see that the market has changed conditions here. We are technically making lower lows and lower highs on the 15-minute time frame. The only reason, like I said, I didn't get involved with this was because I put my entry below that sort of level and I haven't been taken in. So the market has obviously kind of continued to push higher. And, the Australian dollar has been fairly strong in the short term recently. Do I think bigger picture it's strong? I don't think so. I think we're probably going to see a little bit more downside. I know we had fairly positive data out of China recently as well, which has obviously caused some strength as well. For me now, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait to see if we can kind of breach back below that 50 MA, back below these kind of lows, see if I can get onto the sort of next lower high that potentially forms here. Otherwise, we're probably going to break a little bit higher. We've got that kind of high up towards 64.90. Like I said, that 6,500 area could be something to consider. We'll have to see how this data drops. This data might be really bad for the dollar, and we see a huge sell-off in dollars, or it might be good. We're going to have to just wait and see for now. But I do quite like that. I do quite like that opportunity there, but we'll have to wait and see. News is kind of holding it up a little bit, and it's quite interesting, isn't it, when we do get these kind of choppy areas? So like on the daily chart here, look at that kind of structure that's being formed here. That doesn't scream sort of aggressive buying either. It doesn't scream aggressive selling either, but it doesn't really scream to me that there's a lot of sort of one-way traffic going on at the moment. It says to me that the buyers and sellers are sort of comfortable where price is right now, waiting for a catalyst. Essentially, that's what it's waiting for. And I think that catalyst is more than likely going to be Friday's PCE data out of the US. So we'll have to wait and see how that one kind of comes through. CG, thank you. No worries. Jeffrey, any thoughts on Euro, Pound, and US oil? I haven't actually looked at those charts recently. I know I had a little chat with my dad today. We did take a quick look at US oil, but I haven't jumped into anything there. Let's go and have a little look at Euro, Pound first then. Euro, Pound breaching that range now, so that's interesting to see. So I didn't see that happen. So on Thursday, we've obviously had a breach of that range that we've been kind of stuck in for a while. Again, this is where we were kind of talking about not being too aggressively short below those kind of key swing lows, and that would have paid a pretty good dividend there. Daily chart breach above a key moving average there as well. I think that's the 200 daily moving average as well. So we're above the daily 200 moving average. Let's just flick over this to a weekly chart. Have a little look at the weekly close. Again, very strong bullish close out of there. So the next thing you'll probably look for is, where's the next place of resistance that price could go? It could go up towards that 86.76 handle, maybe that 87 handle. And if I just refine that a little bit, you're probably looking more towards that 0.87 area more than anything. So yeah, this is a good market to watch. I think, I'd be very much. Let me just sink a few of these levels into the market there. I'd be watching this 4-hour time frame now. We're above the 50 MA. What I'd want to see is the 4-hour form a new low. Then can we get a new sort of low that kind of comes into that? So maybe a bit of a push away, come back in, around about this 0.86 handle might be worth it. And then I'd be looking here, what happens on a lower time frame? Do we get that change in conditions on a 15-minute? So I'd say good market to take a look at. Is there something right now? For me, no. I would be looking for price to impulse away, come back, give us an area of support to work with, and then go from there. Because to me, although we've got this kind of sticking point here, the support is still back below that 0.86 handle at the moment. And I'd want to see price kind of find some kind of support there first. Okay. So that's euro pound. Let's go take a look at oil. Oil been moving quite aggressively to the downside of late. And be interesting to see where this goes. So this is WTI, and what I noticed about WTI was, I was fairly bullish WTI, and I was fairly bullish even after this drop here, and I actually took a couple of losses, but it wasn't too bad. Obviously, had quite a lot of long positions in the market, so wasn't too fussed there, but. Look at this, and I know I kind of talk about this all the time, but when price clearly breaks below the 50 MA, and you've got that confluence of the 50 MA with previous kind of areas of lows and highs, look at that great sort of entry in there. Looking at the daily time frame above, it could be an interesting place to start getting involved again, because will we see oil below $80 again? I think that's the question at the moment in the markets. Obviously, oil prices have come a little bit lower because tensions have eased at the moment between Iran and Israel. So that's why we're seeing that sort of decline, that sort of risk kind of element has kind of dissipated. So that's why we're seeing that decline. Do I still think that OPEC are cutting production of oil? Yes, they're cutting production of oil, so that should create demand still. So do I think this oil play is over yet? I don't think so. I'm looking at the weekly chart as well, and I can see we're kind of pulling back here, and it's just recognizing what phase we're in. Okay, we're in that sort of retracement phase now, aren't we, on the weekly time frame? So best thing to do is just wait to see, do we get a bullish reaction this week, or does the daily time frame give us a strong bullish rejection around $80? Does the H4 time frame show us that price has changed trend, a break above a 50 moving average maybe? Then the sentiment changes at that point. We're starting to look for potential longs in there. You could try and look at early opportunities. I mean, I can see that obviously there's been big support here in the past. We've come back down. We're retesting that level. Maybe you want to look at being a buyer again. But looking at the higher time frame, I think for me, the higher time frame hasn't quite set up the way I would want it to set up yet. And that's where I like to take a lot of my calls from. So if this is still bearish here, then I don't necessarily want to be a buyer yet. I want to wait for those daily kind of bullish candlesticks, because when you start to see those bullish candlesticks form, if I just highlight that area there and then just sink it in the layout, if you look at your 4-hour time frame, then you get those nice higher lows, higher highs kind of patterns that form, which give you those kind of trading opportunities. If I go back on this 15-minute time frame, in that period there, you could look on your 15-minute at breaks above the 50 moving average again, and look at all those breaks there above the 50 MA. So I want to see sort of a daily kind of bullish close here first. Then I start to think, okay, is this now going to be the point where we do start to see a bit of movement? and can that give us something to kind of capitalize on a day to day. So yeah, like oil as well. I still think above $80 is still a good buy in my opinion. So I just want to wait for some kind of good technicals to set up here and whatnot. No worries, Vincent. No worries, Joffrey. Hope that helped a lot. One chart I do like the look of, and we are going into earnings season at the moment. There's some a big announcements coming from big tech. We've got big earnings coming up this week. You've got Tesla, Meta, Google, Apple, things like that. So if you just go actually to, just pop this up here a second. I was looking at the earnings calendar. This is the NASDAQ earnings in here. So when I'm talking about big tech, you've got Tesla coming up today. If we go to Wednesday, we've got Meta. Thursday, if we look at Thursday, you've got Microsoft, Alphabet, T-Mobile. Friday, you've got other tech companies as well. So earnings season coming up, and I quite like where the stock markets are positioned at the minute. If we go take a look at the NASDAQ, for instance, you can see that, if I just pop it up to a weekly time frame, we can see that we've kind of come back into that sort of breakout high area, where the market's breached those key highs. And we were talking about sort of, all-time highs being formed on the NASDAQ. And we've seen a decent decline here. So, can earnings kind of bring prices higher? Looking at this 4-hour time frame, don't think the setup's there just yet. I think that we've got to wait a little bit longer. But I'm going to be looking to see if we break any kind of structure points on these. Can we see like a dip back down into 17K and then a breach back above? That to me would be quite significant in the stock market move there. Looking at the Dow as well, I quite like the idea of the Dow moving higher. We've broke above the 50 on the Dow on the 4-hour time frame. Look at this weekly chart as well. We've had this real kind of consolidation on the Dow Jones, and price has breached that. It's come back, it's retested it. So yeah, I like longs on the Dow as well. I think stock markets are looking pretty good again for potential opportunities. So yeah, that's what I'm kind of really focusing in on for the next couple of weeks as well, is because if we start to see good moves here, does that give us kind of opportunities on our stock indices? You can see we're breaking above that 50 MA again, and look how it's kind of holding there at the moment. So if we can continue to do that, stay above this, I'll be happy to potentially be on the sort of move here. If we look at it from technicals as well, you've got that trend line break from that downward period. You could probably turn that into a little bit of a sort of channel that developed in the market, and we've breached that bearish channel now. So are we going to start to see price kind of continue to push a little bit higher now for the Dow at least? Let's go flick over to the S&P as well. S&P 500, very, very similar, coming into some key areas as well. Just have a little look at that. And I mean, the stock market's been down recently because of the potential for the Fed not to cut interest rates. They were very, very bullish because the sentiment was there that the Fed were going to cut. And when we had that data, the CPI data, which kind of came in hotter, that really put a doubt in investors' minds that we were going to see a cut by the Fed. And that's why we've seen those downside movements in the market. So, I'm liking the potential for the stock markets now. Can we start to see a little bit more upside in them? One commodity that's dropped quite significantly at the moment is gold, though, isn't it? I don't know if anybody's taken a notice of gold. Now it's not sort of rampaging higher, but we breached that 50 MA on the 4-hour side time frame. Look at that weekly close as well. Very strong weekly close. And this is why I was saying it was really important, if you were trying to get long gold, to not target anywhere higher than the previous swing highs, because you don't know what's beyond that point. Obviously, we saw large selling coming in around about that $2,400 area previously. Price tapped into that again, and we saw quite a significant sell-off again. So very interesting market at the moment, especially if I look at it from a weekly time frame, because I look at it and I say to myself, well, we've breached last week's low. We've breached the previous week's low as well. Is this going to maintain sort of a more of a longer term pullback now, maybe back down towards sort of $2,200, where you've got this sort of weekly consolidation in here? So, that could be significant going into this week. I can see on the 15-minute we're starting to breach the 50 MA back to the upside there, but look at the 4-hour one. It's way below the 50 MA at the moment. You've got these swing lows down here at 22.77. So it's not looking to me like this is a very bullish market right now. We might get a couple of sort of rallies, but we don't really see any kind of significant buying, I would say, right now on gold. And, look at that weekly candlestick at the moment. That might change. If the daily starts to push back up towards the kind of previous daily lows around about that 23.63, that could change. But again, as the sort of tensions between Iran and Israel sort of faded, has that given a bit of a breather for gold as well? So, it'd be interesting to see, how this continues to play out. Looking at the hourly chart, we're pretty much in a little bit of a trading consolidation. I can see it here on the 15-minute more clearly. The market is kind of sticking below that. So, if we stay below 23.14 today, then there might be a possibility to see price come back down towards the key swing lows here, down towards that sort of 23.93 handle. If you are a day trader and you're looking at your lower time frames, like your 3-minute or your minute, you could be looking at a potential break of lows. Does that give a potential downside opportunity for moves towards that 22.95 area on your gold price? Potentially a breach above it, then you've got all this price action towards 23.25, 23.40s that could be intraday targets for you, which is kind of those overnight areas of support and resistance from the Asia session. Any questions so far, guys? We're running about 30 minutes. Let me know what else you're trading as well. Was looking around a little bit earlier, and there wasn't too much that I'm interested in at the moment. Obviously, the Swiss franc's a really important market to be watching at the moment, because we did get obviously some Swiss franc strength last week. If you're familiar with the currency strength meter that we talk about here on the channel, let me just go into the VIP trading room here. Just load this up and we can show you that. Go down into John's updates, and then go to the currency strength meter. This is just a mobile-friendly currency strength meter. You can see it's very much sized down, but you can see that the dollar's still very strong. But you can see the Swiss franc, that purple line, and you can see that it came from that reversal area and it's starting to strengthen. Yen continues to remain pretty weak. But what was interesting about this, though, is because the Swiss National Bank cut interest rates, and then we're talking about wanting to see a weaker Swiss franc. So that's something that I was very much interested in trying to sort of short the Swiss franc. But the market may have slightly, priced that in, because if we go take a look at dollar Swiss, for instance, dollar Swiss hasn't really kind of pushed beyond those major swing highs. We've very much stayed within that sort of range here. And obviously, if the dollar's fairly strong at the moment, on the sort of longer term scale, and Swiss franc's pretty strong. You've got that range bound market that's being created. So very difficult at the moment. I think if the Swiss franc does give up some weakness, then I do think that dollar Swiss could be around, 0.92 handle. Not really seeing it at the moment. I mean, if we take a look at that 1 hour down there, if I just move back to the 4 hour time frame, you can very much see that price is kind of trading within this range here at the moment. So yeah, very, very tricky conditions in terms of the Swiss franc. I don't know where Euro Swiss is positioned, because Euro Swiss was another market I was fairly interested in. I don't know where this is positioned right now. Again, look at that, fairly range bound at the moment. No real kind of idea to what's going on there, apart from looking at range breaks, to be honest. Looking at the daily chart, I can see that we've tapped back into the daily 200 MA. The market is starting to potentially move back to the upside here. But I think if I wanted to be long this market, I'd want to see break above the high, come back in, and then a continuation, sort of a consolidation breakout kind of opportunity there, potentially. Let's flip over to the dollar index then. Dollar a little bit weaker the past couple of days. We are still above this 105.85 handle. We tried to breach it. Market's rallied to the upside, and we're just kind of holding here at the minute. We do have that data coming up though in 13 minutes. So we'll have to see if the dollar strengthens off the back of that data, or if it breaches 105 or the sort of 105.80s. A breach below 105.80, then I think we're coming back towards the 104s. 104.90s, maybe even the 105 handle, which is this kind of previous support here. But that consolidation there doesn't, I don't feel like that's a very negative consolidation, but I could be wrong. Joffrey, do you only take trades on the 15-minute with your strategy? No, but I like to basically use a sort of top-down analysis point of view. So I'll try and understand what the higher time frame's doing. So let me just kind of give you a little bit of an insight. So yesterday I went short on euro dollar. Okay, let me just take this off, and I shorted this candle here down to this swing low. And what I try and do is understand what the higher time frame's doing, and then approach the sort of 4 hour levels of support and resistance, highs and lows, and then I look for a change in trend on the 15-minute time frame. So do I always execute on the 15-minute? No. Sometimes execute on the 5-minute time frame if I feel like there's an opportunity to do so. What I'm trying to essentially do is maximize my reward to risk ratio as much as I can, and I can do that by dialing in on lower time frames. Okay, so yesterday on euro dollar, what I was looking at, and you can go check out the video from yesterday on YouTube. I did a live trade breakdown, but this was the situation we had, right? Price was kind of forming support at 106.34 on the 4 hour time frame, and resistance at 106.65. So what I looked at was how price reacted to those swing highs. Okay, so you can see on the 15-minute time frame here on the right hand side, the market was bullish into that level. And then what I tend to do is I wait to see how the 4 hour closes. Okay, because I want to see, do I get a 4 hour sort of rejection at that point? And we did. So the market at the sort of 10 o'clock closed bearish. Okay, so that was something I was looking for. And then basically I looked at the structure here on the 15-minute time frame. So we'll zoom right in. And it's a very simple strategy, really. It's looking at what the higher time frame's done, and then how does the higher time frame perform from that point. So you can see here we consolidate, we break that 50 moving average as well. Price then comes back in, and I'm looking for the next lower high. I'm looking for the market to do that essentially, and trying to find that area there. So when I saw the 15-minute popped back up here, I basically waited for a bearish close below the 50 MA, and then went short on that. Now, if I was a little bit braver with my sort of stop loss. I would have put it about 10 pips, but I didn't. I put it about 16, 15 pips, just to kind of give it a little bit more breathing room above that 4-hour high. And yeah, price went down, and I ended up taking the position out around about 1.5R in the end, because price started to kind of fumble around down here on a lower time frame, which is where I wanted to get out. Essentially, was around this area. I would have liked it to come towards the lows down here, but you can see that 4-hour H4 low there was a perfect turning point for price. Okay, because the way I look at prices, it moves from highs to lows, and who are dictating prices around those points? At high points, there are more sellers naturally there, because it's turned from there before. At low points, there are more buyers around that point, because it makes sense for sellers to take profits there and potentially for buyers to come back in. Doesn't mean that price isn't going to continue. Obviously, every strategy or kind of every market will move differently due to different reasons. But that was why I kind of got involved with that there. So that was a 15-minute. If I'd gone down to the 5-minute, would I have got a better trade? Maybe. I think what I would have looked at was the sort of break of this kind of consolidation there. So I've either would have shorted that candle here or this candle down here. So where I got out, depending on how aggressive my stop is, it's pretty similar outcome. Maybe I would have got a better outcome slightly if I traded the 5-minute time frame, but traded the 15-minute. Was happy with that sort of position in there. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. I was also kind of watching the fixed range volume profile as well at this point. And price came back within value. So I kind of like to look at that in day trading as well. Whereas yesterday's value area, has price come back within value? Usually you can see price trade from one side of value to the other. Obviously this came short. There was a low there instead that price took advantage of instead. So we did come short of that previous low. So yeah, I ended up getting out anyway for a positive outcome there. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Looking at today's price action, we were well above the value area this morning after the data. Price has started to fall back within there now. So maybe, we are going to start to see a bit of a move to the other side, depending on how this data comes out as well. We've got 6 minutes to the data, so we'll stick around. We'll see if the data is positive or negative for the dollar, and then go from there. Hopefully that answered your question. Also, guys, if you have any suggestions, what you want to see on the live streams, do you like the Forex, breakdown? Would you prefer to see other things? Let me know in the comment section. I'm, happy to have the feedback. I really appreciate your guys' thoughts as well, on how you would like to see things. But yeah, I can see kind of like price came up into that H4 area today. This area wasn't really tested towards 1.0678, and we kind of tested that after the data. Pull back. We've retested that zone. Market's moving lower. So maybe looking at euro. Let me tell that to the 4-hour chart. Sorry, on the 5-minute. Maybe I would have looked at this break here with a short here, stops above the highs, looking to maybe target this sort of swing low, if that makes sense. Because you had that 15-minute structure, 4-hour sort of breakdown, 5-minute change of trend. That's something I would consider. But obviously we've got data coming up in the US very, very shortly, so to wait and see how that one plays out. Let's have a little look how the market's shaping up ahead then. So it actually looks like we're seeing a tiny bit of dollar strength coming into the data, which usually would suggest that there is maybe a little bit of dollar weakness to come. Typically when you see the dollar get stronger before an event, it can lead to some weakness and vice versa. Although the dollar has been fairly weak the past couple of days anyway, so it has been weak. So I have to wait and see how this plays out. Dollar CAD didn't continue up. This is one of those points as well. It doesn't work all the time. This is a good example of this. Price came back into this 137.33 handle, and I took a long position off the back of that, and you can see it completely failed. So basically what happened was the market found support here. We came into that level, and I was watching for that pattern, that sort of first lower, higher low pattern, which essentially became here. And I took a long position there, and the market failed to break any higher, and my stop loss was down here, and I got took out for a loser. So the strategy is, doesn't always work. I try and trade the 4-hour levels of support and resistance, and the majority of the time it does, but you are going to get those losing positions. And if I was looking at the daily time frame a little bit more carefully, I might have reconsidered that position, because we had a sort of a secondary phase coming in on the daily chart, and that's not something I took into consideration at the time. So maybe we are going to see a little bit more downside on dollar CAD in the short term. You got 137 coming up, which was actually the sort of original level of interest for us a couple of weeks ago. Was this area down here. Long move to the upside. Prices come back into this area now. If I was to kind of put a fixed range volume profile over that area, you'd see that we have big volume sort of picking up towards this point, around about 136.85. So this was actually the original area I was interested in on dollar CADs. You can see that price is sort of consolidating on that 15-minute time frame now. So I think if we got any kind of breaches higher, that could be a potential move up as well. Either that, if it fails, then 136 is the big number, isn't it? It was the big number that held for so long recently that maybe we're going to see a sort of retest of that. So again, daily candlesticks pretty bearish at the moment, so we shouldn't really trade against them until we get a sort of daily close. Dollar yen's an interesting one. Dollar yen just scares me. I don't know about anybody else, but trying to trade dollar yen at the moment just seems very, very risky. You've got Japan officials near enough, I was going to say every day, but nearly every day, saying that there's going to be some kind of intervention, but there hasn't been any intervention. And then we've got the BOJ coming up at the end of the week. I still feel like 160 could be the level, but do I want to trade it to 160 right now? No, just in case that intervention comes in and we see some big changes in the market. So let me know if you guys are trading any cross pairs at the moment. I haven't really looked at many, but maybe cross pairs with the Japanese yen could be quite handy at the moment. But other than that, so the dollar data dropped. We've actually seen a decrease in US dollars. Let me just flip back up. Dollar is pushing lower. So let's see what that came out as. So it's actually a big change here. We've actually seen manufacturing PMIs come in at 49.9. So that's below that sort of 50 marker there. I'm having some alerts go off. I don't know what alerts those are. Let me have a quick look. So yeah, manufacturing PMI 49.9, seeing a little bit of a decline there. Services PMI 50.9 as well. S&P global composite PMI down as well. So yeah, dollar getting a little bit beaten here right now. Let's go flick over to the stock markets, see now how that's affected the stock market. So a little bit more bullish on the stock markets. Again, is that going to feed into the narrative that actually that these cuts are going to come a little bit sooner than anticipated? That's what the sort of talk will be now, is lower manufacturing PMIs coming through. Are the Fed going to do something that potentially supports that narrative? So let's have a quick look if it's come out on Forex Factory as well. Yep, same readings, 49.9, 50.9 on the flash services PMIs. So that's quite significant. That manufacturing drop there is quite significant, because if we look at the sort of trend recently as well, although we have been in that sort of below 50s, like I said at the start of the stream, we've been tracking higher here. Manufacturing PMI has been tracking a little bit higher. Services PMI is okay. It's not the worst. Above 50 is usually good. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this affects the US dollar going forward. Do investors now feel like that is a good reason for the Fed to potentially start cutting rates? I still think the data on the PCE outlook at the end of the week, is going to be the one. Core PCE price index month on month at the end of the week is going to be the big one. Big miss to the upside here. I think we'll definitely see the Fed, hold rates higher for longer. Miss to the downside would put that in question. Would really put that in question. Wonder if that's affected the CME Fed Watch tool right now. Might not have. Let's have a little look at the June probabilities. So yeah, June cut is still priced in at 86.7%. Maybe it's looking more at July now. So July now 61.6% of no change. September is where the market is starting to feel like they're going to get cuts now. Easing is 64.3%. Vincent, price is way above my stop loss, but my position hasn't closed and I'm losing more than I calculated. You might have suffered a little bit of slippage there. When price moves quickly, you can suffer a little bit of slippage. It can work both ways, but we only really hear about it when it works in a negative fashion. So if that's the case, the only thing I would say to you is I would look at closing the position down. Let's see how that impacted gold. I was just kind of looking around to see what was going on across the board there. Let's go see how that's impacted gold. Gold might be back on the rise here. All right, that's a little shock. I wouldn't say that's a big shock. It's a bit of a shock in terms of coming in at 49.9. That is a bit of a shock, considering the fact that we're looking for 52 on both. So coming in a little bit lower than what we expected. Manufacturing PMI coming in lower is quite significant. And this is that breakout now on gold. This might change things in terms of that sort of structure I was talking about. Break above that zone now. Market's starting to potentially move back to the upside. So we could maybe expect something like this to happen. Bit of a pullback and then continuation there on gold. So that could be something to just keep your eyes on in the short term. Potential pullback there. I'm just going to add a little alert there on gold. Might be something to watch out for. Right then, guys, any more questions? If not, I'll probably leave it there for today. Like I said, we've got some big data coming up still as well. You've got new home sales coming up in a little bit. If you go take a look at this week's data, let me just change this filter. Okay. So you've got crude oil inventories coming on Wednesday. GDP data in the US as well. That looks going to be a big one. But yeah, this Friday is going to be really big. Core PC and PC price index. I'll talk about this in Thursday's stream as well. We'll see how the market is kind of positioning ahead of that and see if there's any kind of opportunities surrounding that point. But it looks like we're going to see a little continued dollar pressure now. You know, how will that sustain? That's what we've got to look at. Will that be a sustained move, or will the dollar kind of fight back a little bit here? You know, I'm looking at the dollar index. I think a good close below this low, that's kind of the extreme low there, below sort of that 105.75 would be fairly negative for the US dollar. You know, close below the 50 could be fairly negative as well on the 4-hour time frame. So keep your eye on that one. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thank you to everybody that commented today. So Vincent, thank you. CG, Joffrey, Ringo, thank you very much for commenting today. Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for watching as usual. If you could leave the stream a like, I would really appreciate that as well. Thank you for taking your time as usual. And I will catch you on Thursday. Cheers.